Hello and welcome to my series on HTML5 game development, where I'll be taking you guys through a basic Space Invaders game. For this tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how to set up the canvas and paint some objects onto the screen. Here we have a basic HTML file with two scripts that we're going to need, one of which is game.js, where all of our game functionality is going to be included. And the other is an import of jQuery, which just simplifies a few snippets of code. Okay, for this tutorial, I'm expecting that you follow along with the code I've provided in the description. But for future tutorials, I'll be writing everything as I go, so you can follow along more easily. I decided to do that for this tutorial because the code is not all that interesting, nor is it hard, and I wanted to save you guys time. So without further ado, let's jump into game.js. So the first thing that you have to do is add the canvas element to the HTML document, and we're just going to do this with JavaScript. So we're going to create the canvas right here, and then we're going to set its width and height. I set it to 97% of the document height and width. If you set it to 100%, there's an issue where the scroll bar takes up a little bit of space or something, and so you have this really ugly display. So I'd recommend that you make it slightly under 1 here. Then we're going to need to get the context. So we're going to be making a 2D game, so you leave this as 2D. If you want to make a 3D game, there's a library called 3JS, which you can look into, but I'm not going to be showing that in this series. So the next core part of any video game in HTML5 is getting the images, and I do that right here by creating a new image object. And you can call this any name, but I call them background image, spaceship image, and alien image. And you also have to give the source of the file. So you can see that it's in the static folder, and the name of the file is background.jpg. So I'll just show you what I have here. I have a folder for my game. I have the index.html. I have my scripts, and then I have this static folder, which is going to hold images, fonts, and anything else we want to add later on. So here's that background file that I'm pointing to here. Okay, so if we keep going, these 3 lines right here, basically what they do is as soon as your browser has loaded the image, it sets this boolean to true. And so this boolean basically just stores whether or not the image has been loaded. And the reason we do that is because if the image hasn't been loaded and you try and draw it, it's going to throw an error, and that'll just ruin everything. Okay, so the next important thing to look at is this bottom line right here, which calls this function game loop every 10 milliseconds. So that's just what set interval does. You should have that for any video game because how they work basically is that you have a certain set of images, and the images' positions are just changing. And every so often, for me here, it would be 10 milliseconds, you redraw all of the image onto the screen with their new coordinates. Okay, so this game loop is going to be called every 10 milliseconds. For now, all we're going to do is call this basic render method. We'll be adding more to this later on in my tutorials, but for now, that's all we have. And then in the render method, all we do is we execute a basic debug statement and draw the image right here. These 4 parameters for the draw image method are the image itself, the coordinates that you want to paint them onto the screen. So this is an x coordinate, this is a y coordinate, and the size of the image. So these last 2 are for resizing. They're optional parameters, so you don't need to include them. But then you'll just get the default image size. And then I have a console.log statement, which is a debug statement. All right, so right now we're just rendering the same images in the same coordinates every 10 milliseconds. Let's check out how that looks. All right, there we have it. The background's loaded. the two images are loaded. And oh, another thing to comment, these images right here, all the images that we're painting onto the background should be PNG files because we don't want the white background of the images to show because that's really ugly. So as you can see here, there's no white surrounding. The last thing which I'm going to show you in this tutorial is how our debug statements are working. So if you press Control-Shift-J, I'm assuming you're using Chrome, you're going to get the debug panel. So make sure you're in the console tab right here, and you're going to see that our debug statements are being printed out just as we had written in the code, and they're constantly being printed because that method is being called every 10 milliseconds. So I hope you're excited to make the game, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.